What's going on, guys? In my last video I did a self-portrait and I edited it and it showed you guys a little bit of behind the scenes in that process. And recently I was hit up by another Philadelphia photographer named Roo Castor, and he's amazing at what he does. He's a sick fashion photographer and editor. So he was like, hey man, let me edit your portrait. And I was like, might as well. So we ended up actually doing something really cool here. He actually edited this photo, and this is the photo right here. So these two photos are the same but edited totally differently, and what's cool about it is that he has so much experience in editing. The fact that he was able to go and do his version of my face, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to bring in Roo and for him to show us his process on how he edited the photo and what was his thinking behind everything. So let's get started.
What's up, guys? I'm Roo Castor, fashion and beauty photographer out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and today I'm joining Josh's video to talk about retouching. He shared a self-portrait he made of himself, and he thought it would be a cool idea to have two different retouching approach to this image. I jumped right onto it. I thought it was fun. It's a really great concept, and it will be a really nice challenge for me since I'm usually accustomed to working on fashion models. So this was a little different, but it was cool to see my take versus his take in this editing. So number one, whenever retouching an image, I kind of start with the end in mind. What do I want to portray with this image? What do I want to make sure it shows? What kind of look am I going for? What is the vibe? In this instance, for example, I had Josh who gave me a very masculine self-portrait with a few colors on each side. You have that purple and teal gels on each side, which creates a bit of a challenge when retouching since you don't have similar skin tone across the entire face, for example. For instance, in this image, I wanted to make sure we kept that element of roughness to it. The way that Josh lit the self-portrait was almost from above, so you had an element of like shadows and some deep tones within the photo. So I wanted to make sure that we kept that throughout the image, and we didn't take it overboard to the point that it was almost fake per se, or like super smooth to the point that it looked like he had skin like a Barbie doll. Now, while the image was in Photoshop, even though I did many different layers and multiple adjustments throughout the entire retouch, there were three main techniques or areas I focus on throughout this retouch. So number one was frequency separation. With frequency separation, I was able to separate the texture and the color in the image and work in each of them individually. In this instance, that was very crucial because we have one side, like right down the center of the image, you have like natural color tones and skin tones, and then once you go to the left and right of the image, you have two different colors. You have that purple and that teal. So we wanted to make sure that we can work on these colors without affecting one another. So that's the reason for frequency separation. And I also did utilize the high layer of the frequency separation or the texture to address some of the blemishes that you might have seen in the skin. Now, in that process, I did make sure to be cautious to not remove every little detail or every little blemish in this photo, because as I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to make sure that we preserve a bit of that roughness to that image and that kind of edge or grunge, if you want to call it that. Now, the second stage of the retouch for me, it all revolved around dodging and burning. This is a really great technique to utilize when working with an image that has multiple colors in the skin tone. And the reason being, you have the ability of using a visual aid or like a black and white layer over top that gets rid of all the colors. So what this tool does for you very well is that it allows you to focus just on the lighting itself and address light patches of skin tone, light patches in the skin or dark patches in the skin by dodging on the dark patches and burning on the light patches. So that way you have a more cohesive and even tone across. In addition, I did utilize the dodging and burning to do a bit of sculpting. And as opposed to using something like the liquefied tool, there's a lot that you can do to an image by just tweaking the lighting or darkening a certain area or brightening a certain area and so on. For example, I did a little bit of brightening across the center in Josh's face in this image because that's the area that had the most highlight and had the natural skin tone. So you notice I apply a little bit of dodging to the brim of the nose here, a bit of the forehead, a little bit on the lips, and just a tiny little bit of extra to the top of the cheekbones. I then burn the edges of his face to make him appear a little bit more narrow per se, and bring the focus of the image towards the center, towards his eyes. And that's just some of the cool things you can do with dodging and burning. After dodging and burning, I did darken in some of the beard to make it look a little bit more full, and then add some little pieces of hair here and there just to like fill in some of the gaps, but not too much. I wasn't going for like full perfection, but more about making it look a little bit more evened across the entire image. Now, lastly, the third section of my retouch, or the third focus area, was to play around with the sharpening of the image, and I thought that was key because this was a self-portrait, and Josh didn't have someone behind the camera. His eyes were not tack sharp, so they weren't super focused. And I think in this photo, especially with the type of lighting and the mood and the drama behind it, it was very important that the eyes got a little bit more of that sharpness and feel. So you will see that I apply a sharpening across the entire image, and then I did an entirely new layer of sharpening where I only brought out the eyes and just a slight bit of the lips to bring that focus and that crispiness back to the eyes, to create that illusion that it was in full focus. So these were the three main areas that I focused throughout this retouch. I hope you found this helpful and were able to gain some insight into some new retouching techniques out of this. If you do want to find out more about some of these and I go more in detail, please feel free to check out my channel. But other than that, I'll hand it right back to Josh. And dude, thank you for having me on. It's super exciting. Deuces.
So I really like the way he edited. He kept the masculinity side of my face. He didn't take away too many like blemishes, but he blended in nicely, especially the colors. It's definitely a totally different approach the way I would have done it. In my photo, you still see a few blemishes, even like shadows under the eyes a little bit as well. He did a really good job on taking that out. I mean, I probably would have like messed up and just looked like a raccoon. It's really cool to see someone else do that in their process on how they get it done. But you know, as for me, like I try to keep like the certain blemishes there, the ones that I couldn't take out, and just take away things that were just annoying. And it's really cool to see him add the hair on my face, just because, wait a minute, is he trying to come at me? Taking a photo of yourself, even if you do have eye autofocus, can be a little bit challenging as well. You think it's fully intact and sharp. I did take like about like 10 photos to get the specific photo that I wanted to use. And even though it was sharp, it wasn't as like super sharp as if someone that was actually paying attention to the camera would have noticed it. Me, I had to like take a photo, look back at it, and use the little small screen to see if it was. Even though I zoomed in, it looked sharp, and it is sharp, but it's just not like fully blown tack sharp like the way he did it. His sharpening technique on the eyes was really interesting because it actually did bring out like the focus on me a little bit more, especially with all the other things that he did as far as the edit goes. Yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see him do that. And yeah, hopefully you guys get something out of it. Let me know in the comments below if you actually like this video and in the previous video as well. And maybe I might do more of these. Maybe I might do some other cool little lighting tricks or something like that. Maybe that's down the pipeline. I don't know. Ice cream? Fake ice cream? I don't know. Thanks for watching this video, guys. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, share with your friends, all that good stuff. Until next time, stay awesome, stay fresh, keep creating. Peace.